Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, all gracious, all merciful. We take refuge in God from Satan the rejected. My best and warmest greetings to you all, dear students and also dear viewers who are watching to these clips. I hope that this can be beneficial for you. In our previous discussions, we had different topics about the types and the barriers and elements and also the factors in the process of communication. Today, I'm going to open up a new chapter in the issue of the models of communication. Why models? Why we are using models generally? And then after defining the issue of the models, we will go forward to the models of communication. The models are the best ways to visualize certain features and also different points, and gives order to the concepts. What does it mean? For example, when you talk about one issue in a theoretical, hypothetical, way, it is just very subjective and it is very mental. So the audience sometimes can be in problem to understand. But when you visualize this process, when you, for example, separate the different factors of one theory, and when you visualize the theory in abstract form, it means you have used a model. So models are the best forms of visualization of a theory and abstract point. And in communication also there are some models. Hundreds of models are existing in the issue of the communication process. We will talk about some of the models. Some of the models which are very important in the issue of the communicational studies. Of course, we are talking about this chronologically, about in the time order. The first model which has been proposed, and according to communication scholars, is the Aristotelian model. In Aristotelian model, we are talking about three different elements: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos, pathos, and logos. What does it mean? Aristotle, when talking about the God-man communication, he says that in this process, there are three elements. Ethos. Ethos, E-T-H-O-S, refers to the good character, good sense, and also good will. It means that in the process of God-man communication, there must be these points in the issue of ethos. So ethos refers to, we can say in different words, to the speaker. The speaker is the person who can have these characteristics. In the issue of pathos, which can be referred to the auditor, or can be referred to the receiver, there are different emotions and different types of audiences. So pathos, P-A-T-H-O-S, in Aristotelian model, refers to audience or to the auditor. And in the issue of logos, Aristotle says that in the logos we are talking about the message. The message, which can be, for example, the rhetorical inductions, or for example, about syllogism, about the different parables. These are helping each other in building one triangle. So in the model of communication, according to Aristotle, the model of communication is a triangle. A triangle which each angle is one speaker, auditor, and also the message. The speaker owns the ethos, good character, goodwill, and good sense. In the auditor, we have pathos, which is about the emotions, also different audiences, and also in the logos, we have actually the issue of rhetorical inductions and also the message. In one word, the Aristotelian model is a speaker, a speech, audience. So, a speaker, a speech, audience. This can be the first model which has been proposed in the process of communication. According to communication scholars, the first model was Aristotelian. The second model is the Lasswell model. Of course, between these two models, I mean the Aristotelian and Lasswell model, there are tens of models which has been proposed with different, scholars, but I'm talking about the main ones, and also those which are very fundamental. For example, when you talk about Lasswell in 1948, in the 20th century, all the communication scholars will recognize you, will verify that Lasswell is the founder of the recent and the contemporary communications. He says that if you want to talk about communication, there are 5 questions: who, what, how, to whom, and the effect. What effect? So let's talk about who communicates. The first question: who is the communicator? So the first question is who. The first element of the process of communication is who. The second, says what. What is his point? What is the point of the communicator? What the first element of communication talks about. So the second element is the message, because we are talking about the content of the communication. So first element is who, the second is what, says what. The third one is in what channel or how we convey our message to the audience. In another word, it is channel. In which channel we are talking about? Through which channel we are communicating to the other? Okay? It's very important. Channel is very important. When you send your message to the audience, for example, via radio, is very different to send it via television, and also very different to use it in theater or also in, in the movies, in cinema, and etc. Okay? Or for example, in satellite. Or sometimes social networkings. So each channel has its own effect. Okay, Marshall McLuhan, one of the other scholars of communication, which I will talk about his points, he says that channel itself has an effect. Channel itself is a message. Although we send a message, for example, a sender sends a message to the receiver, but the channel itself that you send this message through, that channel itself is also a message. For example, if you see one movie, a film in cinema or in kino, the effect that you see it on the silver screen, on the cinema screen is totally different than watching that movie on the TV, and it is completely verified, and all the cinema scholars accept that when you see one movie in cinema is very different than watching that movie on TV. So the channel through which you send your message can be also a message, and it has an effect, and the audience can be influenced by the message. For example, nowadays, when you send your message via letter, is very different than sending through, for example, Viber, WhatsApp, through Facebook, through Skype, through Uvu, I don't know, Telegram, and etc. Different names, different programs, and different facilities. Each of which has different, as a matter of fact, effects and influences on the audience. So the channel itself is very important. So the third point was the channel review. Who says what in which channel? The fourth is to whom you are sending your message. According to Laswell, one of the main scholars of the communication, receiver is whom. If you are sending a program, for example, to a religious group, it's totally different to sending, for example, to people who doesn't care about religiosity or some ethical points. Okay, you have to consider all the directors, all the producers of the programs. At the first stance, they verify and they determine who is the target audience. If the target audience of this program is the young, so you have to use some channels which is important, or you have to use some elements, or in the playwright have to write the play in a way that the young can be interested. But if they are religious, so it is different. So the fourth element in Laswell communicational process is to whom. The fifth element of the Laswell model is with what effect? The feedback. It means that when the sender sends a message via a channel to a certain receiver, now what is the effect? What is the feedback? So the feedback is also in the process of communication and included. This model, which is the verbal model and advanced by Harold Laswell in 1948, is very sequential and very in a lineage pattern, so you can easily understand it. Laswell in his model has 3 points. It is different from the model itself. Laswell says that as a social scientist, his model has 3 main functions. He says that according to Laswell, communication and his model of communication in particular has 3 functions. First, surveillance. The first point of the Laswell and the function is surveillance, a function of diplomats and political leaders to alert society to the dangers and opportunities it faces. So the first function of Laswell model is surveillance, alerting the audience. Of course, maybe it is very special in that time and space that Laswell lived, so surveillance is very important. 2, correlation. The correlation is a function carried out by the institutes such as educators and poll takers designed to gather, coordinate, and integrate into meaningful form the responses of society towards changes in the environment. So the second function of Lasswell model is correlation. He says that the coordination of different institutes, different people, different groups are also one of the functions of communication process. And the third one is that transmission. This is very important. Lasswell mentions that one of the main functions of communication is the function of transmission, a function carried out by institutes like the family, church, school, and community in order to hand down values, norms, customs, and traditions to the next generations. Lasswell says that when you convey a message to the other generation or transmit, so the other generations, when you send it and transmit, will be included in this issue, and this is very important. The transmission of the cultures, the transmission of the values, the transmission of the, beliefs. So it is also another function. So according to Lasswell model, there are three main functions of a process of communication: surveillance, correlation, and also transmission. This is the functions of Lasswell model. This model was one of the important models, which has been proposed at the first half of the 20th century, and it has affected so much the process of communication. And many scholars, which will talk about their, as a matter of fact, their attitudes and about their patterns and models, are affected by his model of the 5 elements of 5 questions: that who says what, via which channel, to whom, with what effects. So if you want to categorize, if you want to classify, for example, the process of communication, you have to extract these elements, then you can analyze, you can interpret the message. Okay? For example, when you are going to interpret the speech of a president of a country, okay? First of all, you have to consider that this is the president who is talking. Okay. Secondly, what is the content of his message in accordance to the receiver? So it is very important to know that to whom this president is talking. Okay, and through which channel? Is it, for example, friendly gathering, or it is via the TV channels? It is news channel, for example. It is live. It is recorded. For example, these are different points that you have to consider in the issue of the communication, and then you can analyze, and you see the feedback in the eyes of the receivers. Then you can analyze the process of communication, whether it was effective or not. This is how you can judge the speakers, those who are lecturing in conferences. If you get the instant feedback from the audience, and very plausible and very good, or for example, appropriate feedback from the audience, then you can understand the process of communication is, for example, successful. So this was the Lasswell model. Just in one sentence, we put an end to this episode, that Lasswell says that communication must perform its key function to protect, fortify, and enhance a nation's stability. Remember that Lasswell is talking in a way that is very near to the world wars, and also it is in the period of the Second World War. So communication in the Lasswell model says that communication must perform its key function to protect, fortify and enhance a nation's stability. So thank you very much for your attention. Until next program, which I will talk about the Shannon and Weaver model. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Thank you.